thanks everyone for showing up, for coming. This is recorded, just like Rebecca said, so everyone can tune in after the fact, no problem. I'm pretty excited to talk about the season of late summer today. This is something that I don't usually get to talk much about. When we'll look at the theory of seasonal attunement and a lot of these overarching concepts I will get into and I will explain as we go forward. A lot of them seem really deep at the time, and they are, but we can do the surface level, kind of the bullet points, or what I like to call the Cole's Note version, if you're old school like me, of these concepts. And that helps us kind of get into it, get a grasp of it at least, because these are tools that you can use in your toolbox to heal yourself, your family, your friends, your clients, your customers going forward. I just want to make sure, can someone give me a heads up or a nod or in the chat if you can see my cursor? Yeah, okay, great, because I'm going to use that to point to things. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. So we're going to talk about this, the theory of seasonal attunement. So if you've seen me speak before, and I know a couple of you have, we always take a seasonal approach to our trainings, to the herbs that we talk about, that we use in a seasonal aspect. I'll get into more about this, but what we're going to talk about today is the season of late summer. Now, why this is exciting to me is because the season of late summer, when we look at the Eastern herbology concept of seasonal attunement, we find that there's actually, this goes back to the 5-element theory. There's 5 different seasons when we look at that. And that's because summer is divided into 2 specific and separate seasons, which means that the season of summer and the season of late summer are much shorter than the other seasons. So usually, and I've been teaching this for 10 years now, we rarely get to talk about late summer because usually it's kind of the hustle and bustle. People are away on vacation. We're getting ready for fall. So this is a perfect time. So I'm really pumped and kind of to explain this and go over this with everyone. We're going to talk about 4 main herbs when we get to them that are definitely pertinent to this time of year. Obviously, tonic herbalism can be used at any time, but there are 4 more unknown or less talked about herbs. So I'm pretty pumped to share that with everybody. Just to kind of get your feet wet onto those herbs and start using them and embracing them, because they're quite powerful medicine as we go forward. So backing up, why is it important to be in harmony with the cycles of nature? I'm going to go over a little bit of review really quickly, because I know most of you have seen me talk before. If you haven't, and you still have access to the training I think we did in March, you can access that for more information. I also can upload that onto our YouTube channel, so you guys could watch that as well, just to kind of brush up on these concepts. But basically we see, for thousands and thousands of years, reference in all ancient herbology to the theory and the practice of living in harmony with nature. We see it come up again and again. Hippocrates mentioned it. Charaka mentioned it, the father of Ayurveda. We find it throughout Chinese medicine. We find it again throughout this herbal history of we need to live in harmony with the seasons, because the seasons, the change of the seasons specifically, are what produce diseases. It's all about that shift over. Now we're going to get into why that is going forward. But this seasonal attunement, this living in harmony with nature, is really the practice of realizing this robust health, getting down to the fundamental robust health of our human body. Us as humans, we're self-healing organisms. We always want to come back into balance, right? It's not our duty, but our responsibility to guide the body back into these healing states, right? The body always wants to come back into balance. So we want to facilitate that. We want to guide that. Now, one thing I want to mention that's really important, because we're going to talk about some really cool herbs, what they can do for you. And herbs, medicinal mushrooms, they're outstanding. But there's something more fundamental that I always try to teach people. And that's, again, living in harmony with the seasons, living in harmony with nature. There's a good analogy that is said, like in the bodybuilding muscle world, if you've ever heard it before, you can't out-train a bad diet. So what does that mean? That means that if your diet is poor, even though you might lift, 1,000 pounds and do 20 million reps of something, if your diet is poor, you're never going to reach that ultimate level. So what is diet in another perspective? That's a fundamental thing. That's a foundational thing, right? We can't, my point in saying this is we can't take for granted, or the understatement of getting good air, good water, good food, good rest. Those things are the pillars of health. So the practice of realizing this robust health is living in these cycles, living to what our circadian biology dictates, what it demands, And then the herbs, the medicinal mushrooms, all these other things are just icing on the cake. They're the gentle guides to guide us back into balance. But we need to have this fundamental philosophy and practice down to get this robust level of health. Like I was telling Rebecca, I've had an injury, was in the hospital not in the hospital last 6 weeks, but it's been actually almost 2 months now dealing with it. I hadn't slept a full night until actually this last night was the longest I've slept in the last 2 months because of pain. And it's a long story. But what happens now when your body's run down, I'm not getting good enough sleep, is I'm fighting a bit of a cold that the kids brought home. Fun times. But this is a reminder, right? Like, and I knew that was coming, not getting that sleep, it eventually takes its toll. We cannot take that for granted. So we need to keep that always in our mind, always paramount, always at the forefront of our health practice, right? Our health journey. So as a little bit of a background, if you're not familiar with me, New Earth Organics, I'm a Tonic Herbalism. I'm an Eastern and Western trained herbalist, but New Earth Organics is a company. We're a Taoist tonic herb company. We're a tonic herbal company. Now, this goes back to the Taoist teachings of tonic herbalism, where we find that is actually the most effective herbal system in the world. And again, it's all about living in harmony with nature and natural substances. It's this seasonal attunement. To back up to seasonal attunement, you can probably guess, seasonal attunement, tuning with the seasons, right? We're tuning to the seasons. This is a practice that emphasizes, like I mentioned before, the promotion of health rather than the elimination of dis-ease. So this is a preventative, prophylactic approach to health. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't use tonic herbs, in certain acute situations. You need to get some sleep, so you use jujube, that type of idea. You can definitely do that. But this is a fundamental foundational lifestyle, right? This is getting back to our roots of circadian biology, who we are and who we should be as humans, and following this whole progression as we go through the seasons and the year. Now, this is a time-tested approach to health. Like I said, the most effective herbal system in the world, practiced for over 3,000 years successfully. Now, this is deep. I know there's Chinese medicine books written 5,000 years ago, but when we go forward, we'll see that tonic herbalism is actually the upper echelon of that whole Eastern herbology approach. Now, we do use tonic herbs in the West, same sort of approach, even though there's different definitions of what a tonic herb is. But basically, we'll get to it. There's a slide that I can kind of give you the rundown of what we're talking about when we talk about tonic herbs. But the biggest thing to remember too, living in harmony with nature, and that no modern prevention theory can compare to this 3,000-year-old, promotion of health rather than symptom managing. So this is the overall schematic. You saw it before on that previous slide. This is the overall schematic of seasonal attunement. This also maps the 5-element theory. It's one and the same. We'll find the 5-element theory in many books of Chinese medicine, herbology, Eastern, Western, Ayurveda, ancient Greek medicine. We'll find this 5-element theory. Now, as I've been teaching this over 10 years now, believe it or not, I find that the approach to teaching it as the seasons is so much easier to grasp than the elements. Elements and element theory are not interwoven into our culture. We're more familiar with the seasons. Now, easier to grasp, like this can go quite deep, but I find the surface level bullet points are what we need in our culture to kind of take this information and go forward. So we'll see that the seasons change throughout the year. Actually, I'll back up a second. This is a comprehensive template. This is a better way to describe it. A comprehensive template that organizes everything in the natural world into 5 distinct categories. So that's everything from a color, a sound, a smell, a taste, an organ, plants, herbs, anything you can think of in the natural environment. We can distill down into these 5 groups. This has taken thousands and thousands of years to develop, and it is fascinating. Again, we're going to do the surface level of it. And I should back up that if you have questions at any time, anyone can put in the chat or just unmute yourself. It's a small group, so we can definitely get into questions. And I hope to leave a few minutes at the end. Keep my eye on time here. But so what we see here is we're in the season right now of late summer. We're in the spleen stomach season. And again, excited to talk about this because this is one of the foundational pillars of our immune system. So we're going to look at today the late summer, the immune system, how to attune to that, and which herbs are beneficial at this time of year. But we see late summer goes into fall and then into winter. These three here at the bottom are the basis for what we call the surface level immune system. The immune system has different layers to it, different levels to it. We're going to talk about the surface level, which I'll get into and define in a second. But as we see the process throughout the year, one thing to remember is there's no straight lines in nature, which means that we're in late summer right now. I know the equinox is coming up soon. I can't remember the exact date. But again, there's no hard and fast straight lines in nature. Usually these are dictated by the solstice and the equinox, right? This is the change of the earth around the sun. This is the macro approach to our health. It's how we tune our circadian biology, attunes to where the sun is in the sky. But again, there's no straight lines in nature, meaning that, you know, and especially if you're from the Calgary, Southern Alberta area, we definitely some years have a long period of late summer. It is definitely a definite season for our climate. Some places, right, just have like hot summer for months and months and months. So you got to take this not with a grain of salt, but with a fluid approach, right? No straight lines in nature, which means that if it stays warm like it has been, you know, well deep into October, into November, we can still embrace these elements. It's not that we have to hurry up for the next 2 weeks or whatever it is until autumn. We can gradually blend the seasons into each other. So how can we accomplish this? This schematic, again, if you're not used to it, seeing it before, looks so hardcore, looks overwhelming, but the system has all been worked out for us. You know, again, like I said, it's the Coles notes, or I guess the modern day would be the Blinkist version of this, right? The bullet points. We just need to know that, fall back on the teachings of tonic herbalism, and life takes us forward. Mother Nature, again, has this design all worked out. So when we're embracing seasonal things, especially when it comes to foods, you know, what's in season at this time of year, that's showing us what we should be eating, right? Those are attuned to us. Now, it is difficult in modern day culture because, you know, if you look at the stores nowadays, we have things like, you pretty much, I think, can get strawberries now 365 days a year, I think, pretty close to it. Blueberries, I remember when I was a kid, that did not happen. You know, short periods of time. We're able to get even mandarin oranges way earlier, things like that. I even think, and I could be wrong, but watermelons are almost available 12 months of the year now. So it makes it more difficult, right? We kind of have to look back at ancient traditions, or even asking our grandparents or that generation, you know, what did you eat at this time of year? Learning what truly is in season, or better yet, plant a garden where you live. The earth will tell you that, right? And that's how we can embrace this easier going forward. It doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Now, like I said earlier, I'm going to define what tonic herbs are. This is a slide that quickly talks about that. But when we see tonic herbalism and tonic herbs, they're the upper echelon, the apex of this triangle. They're the herbs of thousands of different herbs that have made its way through inferior, general. So we're talking about inferior, medicinal, general, preventative herbs, all the way up to them that have been this over thousands of years, past certain criteria. The criteria is right here. There's 6 different criteria to make these tonic herbs. Now, again, these are the best of the best, and there's debate on how many there is. You know, roughly from my research, especially from the Eastern standpoint, in Eastern herbology, there's like roughly 20 to 30 that we can confidently say these are tonic herbs that pass this. Some of the biggest criteria these herbs have to pass is can do no harm. These are herbs that can be taken over long periods of time consistently and will not cause you any radical side effects. And this gets difficult with modern day world. You know, we'll see things like Hoshu Wu is erroneously dubbed a problem for long-term use on the internet. It's a misunderstanding of what true Hoshu Wu is, cured in its traditional form. You know, when we're embracing these herbs in their actual way they're meant to be used, Hoshu Wu being a good example, they can do no harm. They're very safe. They're going to promote long life. They're usually going to taste good. This is a bit of a sliding scale on today's taste buds, because most people want you know, crazy things out there. Although my kids think Resperactin is like the best thing they've ever tasted, and they ask for it as a treat, which we don't give it as a treat, as a side note, but it's kind of funny. Usually taste is, this subjective thing of the year 2022, but improve your quality of life, enhance you on different levels of the body, different levels of well-being. And again, nourishing one or more of your three treasures. So again, when we're talking about the herbs going forward, we're talking about the best of the best. Now, getting into the season of late summer. Like I said before, this is known as the spleen season or the spleen stomach season. Now, the spleen stomach season is all about the earth element. Okay, this is about the earth element. Now, I don't, like I said before, talk about elements when I'm teaching this, but it's interesting to note that these elements do dictate, what we can interact with in the natural environment. So if we look at the earth element this time of year, what is this time of year? It's usually known as harvest time, right? This is when usually all the goodies come in at the farmer's market. This is if you plant a garden, you're starting to pull up your gardens, you're starting to be harvesting, you're working with the earth more. All right. This is such a fundamental thing for us, especially in our modern day culture. Working with the earth, prepping soil, you're even starting to plan for winter. Sometimes this climate, in my experience, a little hard maybe now to get second crops of things, but possible for some people with greenhouses. But we shouldn't worry, but it's that worry about getting ready for winter, thinking about planting your garlic or your overwinter things, starting to plan that out. You'll see that you feel more driven to desire more baked foods, more starchy foods. Think of those summer squashes, late summer squashes. We're getting into coming the winter squashes. Those things are what our body starts to yearn for and want. Which is really interesting about the earth element too, why it's so important. And I'm not saying you have to go garden. It is not for everybody, prepping the soil and doing all this. I love it personally, but that's not for everybody, and that's totally okay. But something that's interesting to note is I do believe us as humans need to interact with the earth in some way, shape, or form. If you look at the work of Dr. Zach Bush, he talks a lot about how, our microbiome, and I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but I do think this is important, but working with the earth, it feeds our microbiome. It exposes us to microbacteria that we need in our system that are found void, like they are missing from groups of people usually living in cities or in urban areas. So when we live in these areas, we lose bacteria because a lot of us lose that relationship of working with the earth, working with the dirt. So again, you don't have to be a gardener, but maybe walking barefoot out, maybe planning to go for some forest walks now and then, breathing in that air, culturing our microbiome. It's going to help your earth element. It's going to help your spleen, stomach, and your overall digestion, especially in your immune system. Now, here's some of the bullet points that I do think you should either write down, take a screenshot of, commit to memory, because these are the ones that are important. So the rundown is the seasonal organ, like I said, spleen, stomach. Now we're going to talk more about the spleen because this is not necessarily the traditional Western sense of the spleen. I'll get into that in a moment. The associated sense with this time of year is our taste. This is when we want to taste things. And you know what? I did not put the, oh yeah, right here. So the taste of sweet. Sweet is so important at this time of year. Most people think, oh, good, right, I can go and pound sugar and these things. When we look at from an ancient perspective, the taste of sweet would be things like baked squash or sweet potatoes or yams, right? And what is usually ready at this time of year? Potatoes, tubers, those types of sweets are becoming ready for us. So we want to embrace taste. Again, that earth element, right? The harvest time. Our mouth is associated as well. Now, this is the tissue of the body related to the muscles. So this is the best time of year to build or heal muscles. So for my injury that just happened, which is muscle related, this is a really good time for it to happen because I'm in the season where I can build back stronger than ever. But the muscles are this time of year, mouth, mucus, saliva, that whole system of taste, mouth perception in that area is super important. Muscles are related to the spleen. Tendons are related to the liver. And we find that the spleen and the liver are brother, sister, right? Or two sisters type of idea. Very intimate with each other in Eastern herbology. Now, the emotion to check at this time of year is the emotions of worry or overthinking. Now, overthinking, well, worry, we can go to anxiety as well. Overthinking is anxiety as well. But overthinking is a huge, epidemic in our culture, literally. Like we live in a time now, and not to get on the soapbox or anything like that, but we live at this time where we're constantly inundated with emails, text messages, social media, and even just bombardment of, media or advertisement or marketing, like it's everywhere. This can cause an overthinking of the body, really wear down our spleen, stomach, our digestion, and our immune system. So I know for me, running a business, I'm a big hobby guy. I have lots of things that I like to get into. Like I'm just always doing something that I love. I try to always follow those passions. Not always easy, but I try. The overthinking, though, there's a time when you need to just unplug and stop thinking. This is also important for students, right? If you're scholastic or very cerebral, overthinking, that studying can definitely wear down your spleen, stomach, and your digestion. So we need to take a step back, unplug, and stop the thinking and just be, right? Don't think, just do, just go through the actions, live in the moment, the power of now type of whole idea. So again, become an epidemic. But if you suffer from either of those things, we need to check the spleen and stomach to keep these in balance. So the tonifying qualities of this year, we want to look for yellow. So this is yellow foods. Now, again, no straight lines in nature, like I said. So yellow could be orange, could be red, but in that kind of gamut of color spectrum. So again, sweet potatoes, right? Yellow, really good. We find things like astragalus as an herb, really good, yellow, sweet tasting. We also want fragrant herbs and foods at this time of year, really help. It's also the energy of dampness. So dampness, we're going to get into a little bit, but this can be everything from excess mucus accumulation in the body, can be from excess fluid like edema, but also, and very commonly in North America, this is a representation or can manifest as fungal, yeast, or candida type infections. We also find it's the season energy of friendly, calm, and generous, meaning being these things helps tonify the organs, right? When we're friendly, calm, okay, this one might not be so easy for some people, but if we're friendly and generous, maybe calmness will come, right? We're an interrelated organ system. So benefiting one thing is going to benefit the other, right? We're a holistic being. So as I mentioned before, the spleen, stomach, it's not exactly synonymous with the Western medicine anatomical approach of what the spleen is. It's more of an energy system, and it's more of how the spleen and stomach are interrelated. You can also extrapolate this more and put under the umbrella of the spleen, stomach, the pancreas. Okay, so this is our digestive enzymes, our digestive function, our digestive energy. Now, it's quite a comprehensive theory or organ pairing. Like it definitely has depth to it. We're going to talk spleen, stomach, digestion mostly, but as you'll see here, it does involve the nervous system, immune function, which all goes down to how our blood is built. Like I said before, our muscle metabolism, but even is related to our endocrine system, especially our thyroid and adrenals, right? There's that interconnection there. We also see it travels over to our liver function, but overall energy metabolism, right? So what's interesting about this is there is research conducted on the spleen, stomach viewed from a TCM or Chinese medicine perspective. And this research has actually shown us provable mechanics and a better understanding that this spleen, stomach, this paired organ relationship, is a real thing, is something that we need to take note of and we need to address, because there is manifestations of illness and disease when this organ pairing is not balanced. Now, the spleen, stomach, from our perspective today and a perspective of what we're going to talk about, the surface immune system, this is all about transforming food into nutrients, extracting the qi, the energy from that food, and building it as blood. So if you've studied any sort of Eastern herbology, you know that qi resides in the blood. So blood and qi in some instances are one and the same in one view. So we see that this blood and qi will furnish and nourish all organs and tissues of the body. So if you're ever lacking qi, especially to a certain area, you're lacking blood to that certain area. So it's something to keep in mind. So some signs and symptoms of spleen imbalance, because you might be like, oh, I have no problems digesting. I'm good to go. I got the iron gut, the iron stomach. My spleen's fine, But again, this is a comprehensive, deep organ pairing. And we find like a whole host of symptoms. Here's just a small rundown. But I will say that there's some herbalists out there, some that I've studied under, I estimate up to 80% of North Americans have some level of a spleen qi deficiency. So a deficiency in the energy of the spleen. Now, how does this manifest in North America? Very often, usually as a fungal candida yeast overgrowth, can be chronic infections, can be chronic viral infections. Sometimes even food poisoning can linger in the body for years. Those viruses can stay dormant for years, which can be picked up on biofeedbacks and things like that. But basically, it's a huge problem. It's kind of like adrenal fatigue. Again, hint, hint, not one and the same, but definitely interrelated. But it's affecting 80% of us. So this is a short list, but some big ones. So tiredness, poor digestion, colitis, IBS, constipation, anything with the GI tract. We got to look at the spleen, stomach, anemia, excess dampness, again, can manifest several different ways, as I mentioned before. The big one, anxiety or worry, right? That overthinking of situations, that monkey mind, not getting it to stop. As I just mentioned, candida, things for like stiffness. One way you can look, and this isn't to be construed as medical advice or self-diagnosis, but you can use tongue diagnosis, which is really powerful, really, really awesome. And I use it often. But just looking at sticking your tongue out and seeing if you have teeth marks, what are called scallops, but they'll be usually the sides of your tongue. And that's usually because your tongue is swollen or fat. And it's kind of indenting with the teeth are imprinting on the tongue. This is also a classic sign of lack of chi, though, and energy, because your body's not got enough chi to make your tongue, taut and toned, that it can fight back from the teeth indenting it. So we'll see teeth marks, right? You can check it yourself in the mirror. Even a puffy or fat, swollen looking tongue can manifest, lacking yang in the system, lacking that holding that deficiency in the system. But these are two big ones, easy to kind of spot. You don't have to be a doctor to see teeth marks on the side, or if you think that your tongue looks abnormally fat or puffy or swollen, then you might want to look at your spleen stomach connection. Anyone who's got blood sugar issues, diabetes, insulin is going to have some sort of disharmony in this system. Metabolic syndrome, a big one is lymphatic conduction. We'll talk about metabolic syndrome a little bit going forward, but it can encompass everything from high blood pressure, high cholesterol, insulin problems, list goes on, weight problems. Lymphatic congestion is a big one, right? When our digestion is working better, we're able to assimilate the food that we eat better. We're not getting these undigested fats and proteins into our system and into our lymph. They're supposed to be taken care of in the stomach. When the stomach, the fire's not working right in the stomach, we're going to be absorbing these things. They're going to clog our lymph system, right? Bogging down the whole system. So super important. And if you're someone who, has a weak immune system, you're catching every cold or flu going around type of thing, this is, again, something you want to look at, is your digestion. Even though you might think you can digest everything, you maybe don't get heartburn or any of these common symptoms people think when they think of digestion. You might be eliminating what you think is correct. If your immune system is weak, or you're constantly got a runny nose or a cough or a cold, because there is those people out there. I have a friend of mine who's constantly like that. We want to look at this digestion and this spleen stomach harmony. Now, how does the immune system relate to late summer? When we're talking about the different levels, different levels of the immune system, not digestion. If we're looking at different levels of the immune system in the body, we're talking about the surface level immune system, right? This is called, in Eastern herbology, the Y Qi. Okay, the Y Qi. This literally is a force field, you can think of it like, that surrounds our body, that emanates and is a public protection, right? This is known as the protective chi. This force field basically surrounds the body. There's different levels of it, so I should back that up. The level that we're going to talk about mostly, and I have a schematic coming up forward, but it's a energy layer that basically resides under our skin and above our muscles, so just under our skin. This is what we can look at in the anatomical view as our lymphatic system. It's called our skin-associated lymphatic tissue, but it's this field that gives us public protection. So now, in an era of, what's the right word? Contagious disease, when we're living, and going into cold and flu season, right? When we're talking about cold and flu season in general, right? Anything contagious, anything that's an external pathogen, we want to have a strong Y Qi, right? We don't want to catch everything that's going around. No matter what, you might not be scared of this or that, and that's totally fine. But whoever wants to get sick, not me. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to catch everything that's going around personally. So we find that this Y Qi is built on 3 different things, right? This public protection. And this gets to why this is so exciting at this time of year, because this starts with the spleen stomach. This is the first building block to giving us that strong protective Qi, right? This protective Qi of the body. As I say here, right, as I mentioned before, the individual organs are part of this larger interrelated structure of the body, this harmony. It's a holistic system. So it's a 1, 2, 3 step approach to getting this strong protective Qi, right? So, and I should back up to saying quickly what it means also when it's an organ season is that organ is breaking down and building up for the next 12 months ahead. So when you want to address any of these, the spleen, there's my cursor, the spleen, the lungs, the kidneys, as we're going to talk about quickly, when we're talking about spleen, stomach, now is the time, right? Going into lung season, right? Which is full on when we're in fall, autumn season. Then is the time for dealing with the lungs and then the kidney in the winter. Doesn't mean you can't address these organ systems at different at different times of the year. But now is the time where we start this building block to give us that bulletproof immunity, that really strong, robust immunity that we all want, right? Inherently want. So late summer begins with the spleen, the digestive health. And I have a good schematic, which I'll go forward to for lack of time, but we're taking in the food that we eat, right? The spleen, stomach, the food, this earth element. We're extracting Qi from the body into the stomach. We're using the air that we breathe. I'll go back quickly, to the lungs. The air that we breathe, we're extracting the Qi or the energy from the air. So the energy from the food we eat combined with the energy from the air that we breathe comes together to make something called the Y Qi. So again, the ability to extract this Qi properly from the air and the food is paramount. And this is all fueled, go up here, by the kidney system. So strong kidneys help emanate this and disseminate this throughout the body, giving us this force field protection. Now, again, there's different levels. We're talking about the surface level, the level 1, right? First Y Qi field. The other 2 levels get a little bit more esoteric, a little bit more energetic. They're still definitely valid in my opinion, but for most people to grasp, right, this physiological approach, this again is our skin associated lymphatic tissue. It's the strength of our lymph system at our orifices, right, at the pores of our body, taking the burden off the system and protecting us, basically keeping our pores closed at certain times. If a pathogen does come to the body, it's attacking it effectively. It's getting rid of it. So this is, again, our orifices are protected by mucus and lymphatic systems, but be our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, skin pores, right? Anywhere that we're susceptible, this Y Qi, this protective field is going to protect us. So this is how we don't get these pathogens coming into us, infecting us. We're publicly protected. We're not afraid, and we're robust against contagious illness. Okay. So this isn't talking about levels of immune system with cancer and other diseases. This is purely contagious external pathogens. Okay, I got about 10 minutes left. We're going to go through these herbs. I'm going to try to make it a little bit quicker so that if there's some questions at the end. Does anybody have any questions so far going forward? See, the chat is up. You can type in the chat if anyone does, or unmute yourself. You don't have to be shy. I do not bite, I promise you. But anytime there's something going forward, especially with these herbs, we definitely can talk about it. You can definitely ask questions, because that's the most important thing to me, is getting you to understand and interacting with these herbs in a confident manner, so that you're not afraid to use them for yourself and clients and customers. This slide, I just wanted to point out, I did forget to mention this and I shouldn't have, but going back to the whole no straight lines in nature, even though the herbs we're about to talk about are good for late summer, this here is showing that these herbs can be started now, but can be taken through other seasons as well, especially for usually the next 2. I find that a lot of them, like Hoshiwu is one of the quintessential winter herbs. We can take Hoshiwu, winter, spring, and even slightly into summer are the best times of year. So my point is that the herbs we're going to talk about, they can be bridged through seasons, right? It's not a hard and fast that, fall is over, we got to stop this one and switch over. We can blend them a little bit, right? And this is how we should approach, in my opinion, our lifestyle, our diet, and all our herbs, in more of a natural hunter-gatherer kind of way, where we're only exposed to these things for certain periods of time, right? We definitely, and my older brother is guilty of this, not to throw him under the bus, shout out Jeff, but we don't want to get into the pharmaceutical mindset where we're on a supplement or an herb where it's take 2-3 times a day going forward, and we never stop that. We want to blend and be fluid with it. Okay. So again, no questions I don't see in the chat. So we're going to get right into it. So first one I want to talk about is maitake. So maitake is one of the most undervalued medicinal mushrooms out there. It's kind of crazy. If we look back about the history of maitake, it is pretty much the first medicinal mushroom to be popularized or be exposed to North America. So I believe it was the early 80s, maitake kind of came out. Could have been early 90s, but I'm pretty sure it was within the 80s. Maitake came out, was exposed in North America, and people went bananas over it. Why? Because it is the king of the immune system, right? Most people, and I'm even not guilty of it, but we look at turkey tail as an immune herb, which it is too. These are kind of neck and neck, but this is known by the ancients as the king of the immune system, and explained as an immune adaptogen, where it's got a varied amount of positive effects on the immune system, but it had this huge popularity in North America, all to do with something called diffraction, which is a segment of maitake mushroom, and people jumped on that big time. So again, you look at North America, where we're the pharmaceutical mindset. People want to take something that's natural, extract it, potentize it, patent it, and then sell it for profit type of thing. Diffraction is amazing. I believe you still can get extracts of just diffraction, but we now know going forward that the whole sum or the individual parts of an herb are not nearly as powerful as the whole herb itself with all beneficial chemistry. So we know that taking maitake complete and whole is your best approach, right? Doesn't mean we can't dose with diffraction when we needed it, but backing up a little bit, I'll go back to this quickly, but that's why I want to mention maitake. Super powerful mushroom. Again, most people, kind of what I think happened is that the market wasn't ready for it in North America, taking mushrooms. Like at that time, that was really crazy and weird. So it kind of died in popularity. It's almost like goji berry, such a powerful herb, but its popularity has faltered because we're not ready as a society yet to accept it. And so back then, when they were talking about taking mushrooms for health, it just didn't take off. But we find that it actually is one of the most researched medicinal mushrooms. This is over 30 years. I actually believe it's over 40 years now of clinical research on it. This is one of the most beneficial spleen stomach herbs out there. When we go back to the taste of sweet, we find maitake is sweet by nature. It's going to enhance that digestive function, right? It's going to not only balance our blood sugar, help with our insulin sensitivity. It actually can help with your metabolism of carbohydrates, which is a lot of what us deal with in today's modern era. But when we look at it in terms of immune system and how the varied positive and adaptogenic effects on the immune system, is it not only can kill certain bad bacteria that lead to inflammation and liver toxicity, but we find that it boosts overall macrophages, natural killer cells, T cells, where it actually shows an 86% tumor inhibition rate in studies. Mouthful, 86% tumor inhibition rate in studies. So pretty powerful thing, pretty powerful tool that you want to add to your toolbox, right? We find that it's used in a whole host of different situations like cancer. We find it's really specific for bladder, prostate, breast cancer. Running out of time here, so I'm going to keep going, but cholesterol, metabolic syndrome, maitake is one. Maitake is actually the one I'll quickly say that Paul Stamets never lives without. If you know who he is, he takes every single day maitake mushroom. Now we find poria mushroom is number 2 that I want to talk about. Poria, most people have no idea what poria is. You find it in our blends. We also offer it by itself, but it is actually the most used medicinal mushroom on the planet, which usually blows people's minds. But it's by far the most used medicinal mushroom on the planet. Why is this? Because it is an amazing harmonizing agent. It's an amazing chi tonic, and it can be used with so many different herbs. It is used in the most formulas in Chinese medicine, along with licorice. Works to harmonize these herbs, that it actually carries the formula where it invigorates the digestive system so that we can assimilate the nutrients more efficiently and better, right? So it's going to make the compounds in the formula more active and more easy to digest. So it's going to make anything you put with it work better. Now, it's also amazing on its own. It is the quintessential herb to add to congee, if you're familiar with congee, which is a rice porridge, also known as juke. This is something you can research on your own, but it's a well-cooked porridge, let's say of rice or other grains, but mixing in poria. So even like stirring our powder in, using an Instapot to make congee is the best. Pro tip there. But putting it in there, stirring it in your congee, it's going to really enhance that spleen stomach. It's going to make your digestion work better. But poria is also amazing for calming anxiety, tranquilizing the mind, soothing something called the Shen. It's very good for getting rid of that overthinking, that worrying. It's just an overall tonic mushroom, and I love it. Helps with all sorts of kidney issues, all sorts of dampness issues, all sorts of bladder issues. Poria is the go-to. It's going to drain that dampness, that pathogen, that fungus, that candida out of the body. Definitely amazing when paired with reishi and maitake. That's a really good pairing. Or reishi, poria, turkey tail, another really good pairing. It boasts an 80% tumor inhibition rate, where even taking on its own had a remission of 10% of all tumors in the body. You can take a quick look over this, but it's things I mentioned before, but it is an amazing immune mushroom, amazing spleen, stomach, tonic mushroom. Third one I want to talk about, only got 1 or 2 minutes left. Thanks for hanging in with me, but we're going to talk about red jujube dates. Now, red jujube dates are one of my favorite things ever. We have the new red jujube dates we got it listed in the system there. So I believe stores can start bringing it in now. But they're my favorite thing to snack on ever. They're a longevity superfruit, one of the most underrated tonic herbs out there. Amazing for the digestive system due to the sweet taste. Amazing for the spleen because of the immune function. But it's going to overall increase that activity in the body. It replenishes the chi of those organs. So if we think again, the spleen, stomach, pancreas, that triad of what the spleen, stomach season is. It's got this powerful chi building capacity, so strong, and not only for the digestive organs, but this is one reason I have this bag on my desk. I was going to open up a new bag today, but for physical rehabilitation, up to 3 times faster you can heal. Usually for injuries like I sustained, they were telling me 6-7 months. I'm walking without a cane now already and crutches and stuff. I'm eating these dates, 2 to 3 per day at least. My kids love them too, which is good. We also, something I want to mention about the dates is they're amazing for the heart, where they nourish the blood of the heart. They'll actually help, similar to L-Cantler, they help the heart work more efficiently, contract more fully, but with less effort. And something modern medicine tells you can't do is heal your heart after a heart attack. There's actual studies showing that dates will help repair the heart muscle after a heart attack, really heart-centered. Also really sleep focused, because sleep is related to the heart, also related to digestion. So it's that beneficial tonic herb to get your immune system tuned up, to get better rest, to help your heart and nourish your blood work better. We also find a neuroprotective activity of it as well. It's going to enhance the mind. So even though it's sedative and hypnotic by nature, it is not drowsy causing, or it won't cause drowsiness, I should say. So even though sedating and calming, it's not going to make you sleepy throughout the day. It's going to facilitate that good sleep going forward. But we also find it stimulates neurological system to promote memory and learning. So I think we're over time, but if everyone's okay for just 1 quick minute, I just want to talk about chaga mushroom. This is kind of an outlier for the spleen stomach season. I wanted to mention chaga mushroom for a few different reasons. Now, it is an amazing overall herb. Most people know it for its high ORAC value, right? 52,000, like crazy. But what is usually underutilized at this time of year is chaga, where we actually find that it's really good for the digestive system because of its bile expelling activity, right? It's going to help clear out that dirty bile system and get that flowing properly, which is essential to a healthy lymphatic and immune system. We also find that it'll be anti-parasitic, removing certain types of parasites and worms out of the body while purifying the blood, while bringing oxygen back into the tissues. Very important for the digestive system. Now, plus, It's got some of the highest food values known of zinc, potassium, germanium, and melanin, right? There's debate on whether melatonin supplements are safe or not, which is an interesting and ongoing research by me. But we find that it's a natural form of melanin, which again can be converted by the pineal gland into melatonin. One thing to know about chaga mushroom is that it actually contains highly digestible forms of betulinic acid, betulin, and luteol. These are pentacyclic triterpenes that are some of the most powerful things we know of in nature. This is concentrated from the birch tree, making it much more easily digestible. We find that research from the University of Chicago, a head researcher there, calls betulinic acid one of the most promising discoveries of over 2,500 plant extracts studied. Now, you can use birch bark, birch conch mushroom, but the chaga mushroom, which is actually a mycelial mushroom, not a fruiting body, it's called a sclerotia, concentrates that in itself. These lupane type triterpenes concentrates that we can get with just little bits of chaga mushroom, a whole host of these type of triterpenes that again have a large array of activity. And I could have made slides after slides after slides on chaga, but mostly known for its antioxidant and anti-mutagenic, anti-cancer, anti-tumoral effect. But don't sleep on it for the digestive system. Really good at this time of year. So it's something to start incorporating now that's going to take you into fall, through winter, and to next spring, right? We don't get a lot of fresh, or we shouldn't be eating maybe a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, whole other topic, going into winter. But when we get something like chaga that's going to give us a lot of nutrition, a lot of important minerals, it's something that we need to embrace. So I want to thank everybody. We're at 8:49. I'm sorry to keep you. These are some honorable mentions at this time of year. Does anybody have any questions? I know there's not much time left. Thank you so much for hanging in there. It was fun. Definitely we can talk about these herbs for an hour each because they're so deep. But if anyone has any questions, now would be the time to hit up the chat or unmute yourself. I'd love to see some of your shining faces, but whatever you're comfortable with. I'll give it a minute, see if anyone has anything to say in the chat. Oh, and I wanted to say too, I'm going to coordinate with Rose. I believe that's who I would talk to about the product for today. I wanted to give everybody I know we didn't talk about it, but a reishi mushroom, because who doesn't like reishi? Reishi is like the one-stop shop for medicinal mushrooms. But I want to give everyone a reishi. I really want everyone to try the jujubes if you haven't, because they're amazing. The ones that we have now are grown in America by our partner in the States, and they're next level for dates. Anything better than anything I've found out of China. And then for the third item, I might do a couple different choices, and we'll coordinate with Rose, and you guys can choose a third product of your choosing. I'll kind of go through and see what I think is a good choice. Maybe one of the ones we talked about today, but we'll coordinate that. I see Rose in the chat. Thanks, Rose. Thanks for coming. But maybe we can coordinate that and get you guys some sample products and stuff. And if there's no other questions, I guess I did
have a question.
Sure,
can
Heather.
Can you just speak quickly on the colostrum?
Sure. Yeah. Is there anything specific you'd like to know about it, or how it relates to this season, or?
Yes, exactly. And
sure.
I just need a reminder of the benefits.
Yeah, definitely.
Who would take it for what reason?
Sure. So colostrum is, basically mother's milk, right? So it is this super nutritive food. We actually find studies show, you can't really use the V word in public, but this is a private talk, but studies actually show that colostrum is more, not beneficial, but more effective than vaccination for certain ailments. It's really immune centered and really digestive focused. So it's going to help build back the tissues of the digestive system while building the beneficial microbes in the system, which is a huge component of it. So it's going to feed that whole GI tract. So I threw it on here. It's not traditionally known as a spleen tonic, but when we're talking about immune system, digestive health, you can't sleep on colostrum, and it's become one of our top 5 selling items out there. Again, it's overall immune function. It's due to also the immunoglobulins in it, right? The actual current batch we have of colostrum is the highest immunoglobulin tests I've seen back yet. I think it's 28%, which is astounding. So when we're talking about the immune system, there's different layers. Colostrum is going to help some of the deeper layers. So things like autoimmune, allergies, those kind of more fundamental, deeper layers of the immune system. But I definitely wanted to throw it on here as well because of the microbiome, the digestive health, its overall benefits to immune and physiological health, if that helps. And if there's other questions specifically about that, you can ask me. I wanted to say 2 peptides on here, only because of the fact of the glycine in collagen peptides, how that's going to help rebuild the tissue of our gastrointestinal tract. Something I should mention about colostrum, like both of these, the mucus that surrounds our intestines is so important, right? If we don't have this good proper biofilm, bacteria have negative biofilm. We have like a beneficial biofilm. We need to have lubricated, mucus covered organs. When we don't, especially in the GI tract, what happens is something called our mesenteric lymph nodes get bogged down with undigested foods, pathogens, things that it shouldn't be dealing with. When we hear that, you've probably all heard that 80% of your immune system is in your gut. Well, why that is because that's a very important area of the body to protect and to keep us safe from the external environment, from all these microbes that are coming in, things we eat, right? We need to have a clear, clean lymphatic system. I won't get too deep into it, but Ayurveda is all about health of the lymphatic system, right? They call it the Rasayana of health, where we need to have this healthy lymphatic system. And these 2 on the bottom, lion's mane, I mean, all these herbs too, but when we're talking about physiological, even symptom managing digestive problems, these are 2 to look at. Yeah. Hopefully that helps answer. I got a lot I could say on it. Thank you very much. But yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have any quick questions or not? I don't want to keep you because you guys got some more coming up, but if not, thank you so much, guys, for coming. I know it's always early morning, but so nice to interact with everybody. Thanks for having me. I hope to see you guys again soon. So reach out anytime and we can get together.
Thanks so much, Derek.
Thanks. Nice to meet you again, Benjamin.
Have a great day.
You guys too.
Thanks,
See you
Derek.
later.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.